Willkommen. It is I, Scott, with another technical update. Let's get started. This week, as you may have seen, Instagram went down. How do you know this? Probably because you were stalking one of your exes and realized can't see Instagram anymore. Sucks. Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and other Facebook services went down for about 15 minutes. It's usually not a big deal, but we can use this as a good example to explain what an API is and how you can use it in your business, and some things to think about when leveraging and relying on third-party services. So before we get started, we should probably define what an API is. It's an acronym that stands for Application Programming Interface. There's plenty of videos on YouTube explaining what an API is, and they're great and probably do a much better job than I can do. But the problem is, you probably watch the whole thing, and then at the end, you're like, what? So an API, like I said, stands for Application Programming Interface. What an API allows you to do is retrieve data from different companies to use it in your application or maybe for your own use case. For example, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Let's come up with a business example. Oh, that's really hard to say. Let's come up with a business example on the fly to explain this concept of what APIs are and how you can use them. Okay, I think I got it. Let's make a website that aggregates all of the photos on Instagram that has cat in the hashtag name of the post. Okay, perfect. So we have our little idea. We're going to build a user interface or a front end, and then we're going to request data from the Instagram API to get all of these cat photos. So we can display them to the user, and effectively, we don't have to store anything in the database, really. We can just access the data from the Instagram API to power our website, and then we just make it look pretty on the front end or the user interface. So what does that look like? So we go to mycats.com, and then when we show up to the page, we make a request over the HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol. We covered that in the other video. And then we make a request to the Instagram API. There's usually some rules of engagement, and you need to sign up for a developer account, yada, yada, yada. But you get the point. Okay, Scout, we get it. What's the point? The point is, so there's 2 points I really want to get through to you. We can use APIs to leverage our businesses, like Twitter, Instagram, and essentially power a product that we built without having to create a whole content management system, storing images, posts, etc., which is a huge benefit. Another great example of this is a Twitter scheduler called Hype Fury. I've been actually using that for the last couple weeks. I really enjoy it. They use the Twitter API from their own interface. So I create a thread and then hit post, and then it'll schedule it out for me. It'll hit the Twitter API, post to Twitter, and that's it. So the second point I want to hit home to you is if we're relying so much on these services, sometimes they go down. And that can result in a really bad user experience. Essentially, your website would just go down if you don't account for it. Thankfully, big companies like Twitter and Instagram offer status endpoints. I should probably cover what an endpoint is. An endpoint is essentially a path or an address to getting specific data. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they all have a status endpoint for you to access. So maybe if your request didn't succeed, you could check, hey, let's go ask Instagram if their status is healthy or not. If it's not healthy, we can show the user, hey, you know what? Instagram went down. We'll be back up in a few minutes, instead of your application just blowing up. So what did we learn today? I really hope you learned something. APIs can really, really, really leverage the capabilities of our business so that we don't have to do as much work up front, and we can rely on bigger companies that have a specialty like Twitter, Instagram, Stripe, image hosting platforms, etc., and leverage what they do best to make our products better. We also learned that shit just goes down sometimes. And we should know that heavily relying on a third-party service or multiple third-party services, and how we can communicate to the user that, hey, we'll be back online in a minute, or giving them a better error message instead of your application just shutting down. Thank you so much for joining me today. Another episode of Get Technical. Subscribe, like, turn your notifications on. Let me know if you have any questions or any topics you want me to cover in the next episode. We'll see you soon.